The last copper coin in Owen Vance's pocket caught the afternoon sunlight as he flipped it nervously outside the weathered farmhouse, wondering if he had enough left for the road back to town if this job fell through. He knocked 3 times on the oak door, rehearsing his best impression of someone who knew the difference between barley and wheat, and nearly stumbled backward when the door swung open to reveal an orc girl with red-rimmed eyes and 2 golden wedding rings balanced in her green palm, catching the light like tiny suns. She stared at him. He stared at the rings. The moment stretched long enough for a crow to call from the barn roof. "You are here about the position." Her voice was rough, like she had been crying or shouting or both. Her tusks were small and delicate, barely visible when she spoke, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid that had started to come loose. She wore a simple work dress, sleeves rolled to the elbows, and her hands were calloused from labor. "Yes, madam. The farmhand posting in town. I have experience with livestock and fieldwork, and I can start immediately if needed." Owen forced himself to look at her face instead of the rings, though his mind raced with questions. Her eyes were amber, beautiful, and currently filled with something between desperation and defiance. She stepped aside without another word, gesturing him into a clean but cluttered kitchen. Dishes sat stacked by a wash basin. A wedding dress hung on a hook near the window, white fabric ghostly in the fading light. On the table sat a half-eaten breakfast for 2 that had clearly been abandoned hours ago. "My name is Petra Oakes. This is my father's farm, though he is too ill now to work it." She moved to the table, set the rings down with a definitive click, then seemed to realize what she had done and swept them into a drawer. "The position is full-time. Room and board included, plus a wage of 4 silver per week. The work is hard. The hours are long. Can you start today?" "Today?" Owen blinked. "I mean, yes, I can. But good. The west pasture fence needs mending before the sheep get out again. There is a room above the barn, clean but basic. Meals are at dawn, midday, and dusk. We eat simply." She was speaking too fast, her words running together like she was afraid he might ask questions if she paused. "My father's name is Garrett. He is upstairs resting but will want to meet you at supper." Owen opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Miss Oakes, I have to ask, the sheep," she interrupted sharply, amber eyes flashing. "They are getting out. That is the priority." He recognized the tone. It was the same one he had used when fellow soldiers asked about his nightmares after the border wars. The tone that said, "Do not dig, do not ask, do not make me say it aloud." So he simply nodded, accepted the tools she thrust at him, and went to find the west pasture. The fence was in worse shape than he expected. 3 posts had rotted through, and the wire had come loose in a dozen places. Owen worked until his hands blistered, then kept working as the sun sank lower and painted the fields gold. The sheep watched him with suspicious eyes, and somewhere in the distance, he heard Petra calling chickens home for the night. Her voice carried across the evening air, tired but steady. When he finally returned to the house, the kitchen smelled of stew and bread. Petra stood at the stove, and an older man sat at the table in a wheeled chair, gray-haired and sharp-eyed despite his frailty. "So you are the one who answered," Garrett Oakes said, looking Owen up and down with the assessing gaze of someone who had spent a lifetime judging livestock and men. "She said you started on that fence without complaint. That is good. We need someone who works instead of talks. Father, please." Petra set bowls on the table with more force than necessary. "I am just saying the last fellow is not here," Petra cut him off, her jaw tight. "This is Owen Vance, and he is here, and that is all that matters." The meal was quiet and awkward. Owen learned that Garrett had been a successful farmer before a stroke stole the use of his legs. He learned that Petra had been running the farm alone for 6 months, and that the isolation was taking its toll. He learned that the farm once employed 3 hands but could now barely afford one. What he did not learn was why an orc girl had been holding wedding rings with tears in her eyes. He did not ask. The room above the barn was exactly as promised, clean, basic, and cold. Owen lay on the narrow bed and listened to the wind rattle the shutters, thinking about amber eyes and golden rings, and the way Petra's voice had cracked when she said, "Is not here." He had nowhere else to go. 4 silver a week was generous for farmhand work. Room and board meant he could finally stop sleeping in ditches and begging for day labor. But that was not why he decided to stay. The next morning, Owen woke before dawn and found Petra already in the barn, forking hay to the horses with mechanical precision. She acknowledged him with a nod and nothing more. They worked in parallel silence, falling into a rhythm without discussion. She milked the cows while he fed the pigs. He hauled water while she gathered eggs. By midday, they had accomplished what normally took her until evening. "You are efficient," she said finally, wiping sweat from her brow. It was the first time she had really looked at him since yesterday. "Where did you learn to work like this?" "Army," Owen said, pitching another forkful of manure into the cart. "You learn to move fast and follow routine, or you learn to dig graves." Something flickered in her expression. "You fought in the border conflicts, 3 years. Infantry. I am better with a shovel than a sword, so they kept me alive on digging detail." He tried for a lighter tone. "Not glamorous, but it kept me breathing." "Breathing is underrated," Petra said quietly, and for a moment her guard dropped. She looked exhausted, hollowed out, like someone who had been holding up a collapsing roof with her bare hands. Then she straightened, and the walls went back up. "The south field needs plowing if we want to get winter wheat in. Can you handle the plow horse?" "I can try." "Trying is not the same as doing." "Then I can do it," Owen corrected, and was rewarded with the smallest twitch of her mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. The days blurred into weeks. Owen fixed fences, plowed fields, and learned the particular temperament of every animal on the farm. He learned that the rooster was a vindictive creature who attacked ankles without provocation. He learned that the oldest ewe was secretly the boss of the entire flock. He learned that Petra sang to the plants in the garden when she thought no one was listening. Old orc songs in a language he did not understand. He learned that she never smiled anymore. Garrett told him the story over a game of cards one evening when Petra was out checking the far pastures. "She was engaged," the old orc said, his hands shaking slightly as he dealt. "Nice enough fellow, human like yourself, from one of the neighboring farms. They planned it all out, combine the properties, work them together, build something that could support both families." Owen stayed quiet, letting Garrett talk. Wedding was set for late summer. Petra was happy. Actually happy, first time since her mother passed. Then the morning before the ceremony, the coward left a note. Said he could not do it. Said his family would disown him for marrying an orc. Said he was sorry. Garrett's jaw worked, tusks catching the lamplight. She found the note next to the rings. He did not even have the spine to face her. "That is why she posted the ad," Owen said slowly, pieces clicking into place. She could not run the farm alone, but she was too proud to tell anyone what happened. Easier to say she needed help than admit she was jilted. Most of the neighbors still think the wedding is happening. Garrett played a card, his expression grim. "She needs someone steady. Someone who will not run. That is why I am telling you this, so you know. If you plan to leave come spring, best to go now. She cannot take another abandonment." Owen looked at his cards without seeing them. "I'm not going anywhere." "Good." Garrett nodded once, decisive. "Your deal." Autumn came with a vengeance. The harvest kept them working from dawn until well after dark, hauling in potatoes and turnips and the late squash. Owen's back ached constantly, and his hands developed new calluses on top of old ones, but the work was good. Honest. The kind of labor that let him sleep without nightmares, and slowly, gradually, Petra began to thaw. It started small. A good morning that sounded less automatic, a shared joke about the vindictive rooster. The day she laughed actually laughed when Owen accidentally scared himself with his own reflection in the barn mirror, thinking someone had snuck up behind him. The sound was rusty, like she had forgotten how, but it was real. "You are ridiculous," she said, still grinning as she pitched hay. "I am vigilant," Owen corrected with dignity. "There could have been intruders. Intruders who look exactly like you, the most dangerous kind." She shook her head, but her eyes were warm. "Come on, vigilant one. Those apple trees will not pick themselves." They spent the afternoon in the orchard, filling baskets with late-season fruit. Petra climbed the trees with easy grace while Owen worked the lower branches. The leaves were turning gold and red, and the air smelled like wood smoke and coming winter. "Thank you," Petra said suddenly from above him, "for staying, for not asking questions, for just being here." Owen looked up to find her perched on a branch, silhouetted against the bright blue sky. "You do not have to thank me. You are paying me, remember? It is more than that." She dropped an apple, and he caught it one-handed. "You could have taken work anywhere. Could have asked what the rings meant and made things awkward. Could have left when you realized what a mess this place was. But you stayed and you worked, and you never made me explain." She paused, then added quietly, "That meant something." Owen felt his chest tighten. He wanted to say so many things that he stayed because of her, that he would fix every fence on the property if it meant seeing her smile, that somewhere between mucking stalls and plowing fields, he had fallen completely and irreversibly in love with an orc girl who sang to vegetables, and worked herself to exhaustion rather than admit she needed help. Instead, he said, "The rooster still hates me, though." Petra laughed again, and the sound was getting easier each time. "The rooster hates everyone. Do not take it personally." Winter arrived with snow and bitter cold. The work shifted to maintenance and survival, keeping animals warm, repairing storm damage, cutting enough firewood to last until spring. Owen moved into the main house when the barn became too cold, taking a small room near the kitchen that had once been used for storage. The three of them fell into comfortable routines. Garrett taught Owen to play chess and told stories about Petra's childhood. Petra taught Owen to make bread and tolerated his terrible attempts at cooking. Owen kept the fires going and the paths clear, and tried not to think about how much he dreaded the idea of spring coming, and having to pretend this was just a job. They celebrated midwinter together, a quiet affair with roasted chicken and Petra's carefully hoarded spices. Garrett gave Owen a new pair of work gloves. Petra gave him a scarf she had knitted in secret forest green wool that matched her skin. Owen gave them both carvings he had made from apple wood, a horse for Garrett, who missed riding, and a bird for Petra, wings spread mid-flight. "When did you have time for this?" Petra asked, turning the bird over in her hands, tracing the careful detail of each feather. "Evenings, when you two were playing cards and pretending I could not hear you cheating." "We do not cheat," Garrett protested. "You absolutely cheat." "Strategically interpreting the rules," Petra corrected, grinning. She set the bird on the mantel where it caught the firelight. "It is beautiful, Owen, thank you." The way she said his name made his heart stutter. Spring came slowly, reluctantly, the snow melting in patches to reveal the dark earth beneath. Owen worked on preparing the fields for planting, his mind already planning the crop rotation and calculating yields. He did not let himself think about the fact that his first-year contract was almost up. Did not let himself wonder if Petra would ask him to stay or if he would have to beg. He was mending the same west pasture fence. It seemed to need constant attention when he heard the horse approaching. Owen looked up to see a well-dressed man on a fine bay mare, picking his way carefully up the muddy road. Something cold settled in his stomach. The man was handsome in a conventional way, with sandy hair and an easy smile that probably charmed merchants and mothers alike. He dismounted in the yard and looked around with the proprietary air of someone assessing his own property. Petra emerged from the chicken coop, basket of eggs balanced on her hip. She froze when she saw him. "Petra," the man said, spreading his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "I know you probably do not want to see me. Then why are you here, Marcus?" Her voice was flat, cold as the last snow. "Marcus." The runaway groom. Owen's hands tightened on the fence post. "I made a mistake," Marcus said, taking a step closer. "A huge mistake. I was scared and I listened to my family instead of my heart, and I have regretted it every single day since. But I am here now. I want to make it right." "Make it right," Petra repeated slowly. "You left me the morning of our wedding. You left a note next to the rings like I was some business transaction you decided to cancel. I know, and I am so sorry. You are sorry because the neighbors gossiped. You are sorry because your family's farm is struggling without the combined land. You are sorry because you heard this place is doing well again." Petra's voice was rising, years of hurt and anger finally finding release. "You are not sorry for what you did to me." Owen stood slowly, making his presence known. Marcus's eyes flicked to him, dismissive, then back to Petra. "Who is this? The farmhand? Petra, look at what you have accomplished here. That only proves we could make it work. Together we could build something amazing. Our farms combined would be the most prosperous in the region." Marcus reached for her hand. "Please, give me another chance. Let me prove I have changed." "No." The word was simple, final. "Petra, be reasonable." "I said no, Marcus." She pulled away from his reaching hand. "You made your choice. You chose your family's approval over me. You chose cowardice over commitment. And I have spent the past 8 months learning to be fine without you. You cannot run this place alone forever. You need help, you need—" "I have help," Petra interrupted, her eyes finding Owen's across the yard. Something passed between them, a silent conversation in a glance. "I have someone who stayed when it was hard, who worked without asking for explanations or making promises he could not keep, who has been here every single day, not because of what he could gain, but because it was the right thing to do." Owen's heart was hammering so hard he thought everyone must hear it. Marcus followed her gaze, really looking at Owen for the first time. His expression hardened. "A farmhand. You are choosing a penniless drifter over me. Petra, I am offering you everything. You are offering me nothing I want." Petra set the egg basket down carefully, deliberately. "Owen is worth 10 of you. He has more honor in his calloused hands than you have in your entire body, and unlike you, he has never once made me feel like I was something to be ashamed of. This is ridiculous. You are making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was believing you in the first place." Petra's voice was steady now, certain. "Go home, Marcus. Tell your family the land is not available. Tell them I am doing just fine. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, but do not come back here." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, looked at Petra's set jaw and Owen's ready stance, and apparently thought better of it. He mounted his horse with less grace than he had dismounted. "You will regret this." "No," Petra said quietly. "I really will not." They watched him ride away in silence. When the horse disappeared around the bend, Petra's shoulders sagged like someone had cut her strings. "Petra," Owen started. "I need a moment," she said, and walked quickly toward the orchard. Owen waited 5 minutes before following. He found her sitting under the apple trees, knees drawn up, staring at nothing. "That was brave," he said softly, sitting a careful distance away. "That was terrifying." She laughed shakily. "Part of me kept thinking I should say yes, take the safe option, the practical option. Combine the farms like we planned and pretend the abandonment never happened." "Why didn't you?" She turned to look at him, really look at him, and her amber eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Because I spent 8 months falling in love with someone who never asked me to be anyone but myself. Someone who makes terrible bread and loses chess games to my father and gets in fights with the rooster. Someone who stayed." Owen's breath caught. "Petra, I know you probably do not feel the same way," she continued quickly. "I know I am just your employer and this is just a job and I have no right to put this on you, but I could not let you think that Marcus meant anything. He does not. He never will again. But you," her voice cracked, "you mean everything." Owen moved before his brain caught up, closing the distance between them, cupping her face in his work-roughened hands. "I fell in love with you the moment you opened that door, holding wedding rings and looking like your world had ended. I took this job because I wanted to be the one who helped you put it back together, and every single day since, I have fallen harder." "Really?" Petra's voice was small, hopeful. "Really? I am absolutely useless at this. I have no land and no prospects, and the rooster genuinely might murder me in my sleep. But I love you. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you sing to the carrots. I love that you rebuilt your life from nothing and did not let heartbreak destroy you. I love—" She kissed him before he could finish, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. She tasted like salt and hope and new beginnings. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she was smiling, really, truly smiling. "The rooster situation is serious, though," she said, and he laughed, pressing his forehead to hers. "I will make peace offerings, build him a throne, whatever it takes." They sat under the apple trees as the sun set, making plans for the spring planting, for the future, for a life neither of them had expected but both desperately wanted. That night, Owen lay awake in his room, thinking. The small bag of coins he had been saving for months sat hidden in his dresser. Not much, but enough. In the morning, he would ride to town. He had something important to arrange. The next week was busy with planting. Owen worked alongside Petra, both of them stealing glances and secret smiles when Garrett was not looking. The old orc definitely knew something had changed his pleased expression. Whenever he caught them working close together, made that clear. But he said nothing, just hummed old songs and beat them both at chess with increasing regularity. "You are distracted," Garrett announced after Owen lost his queen for the third time. "Both of you. Wonder why that might be." "Absolutely no idea," Petra said innocently, not looking up from the bread she was kneading. "None whatsoever," Owen agreed. "Young people today," Garrett muttered, but his eyes were twinkling. "In my day, we had the sense to be subtle. You proposed to Mother by literally picking her up and carrying her to the village elder," Petra pointed out. "That was different. She kept saying maybe, so I made an executive decision. That sounds like kidnapping. She carried a sword and could have stopped me any time. She chose not to." Garrett moved his bishop. "Checkmate, by the way," Owen groaned. A month later, when the fields were green with new growth and the apple trees were blooming, Owen asked Garrett for permission. The old orc studied him for a long moment, then wheeled his chair over to a locked cabinet. "Her mother would have liked you," Garrett said, pulling out a small box. "She always said Petra needed someone steady, someone who would not be intimidated by how strong she is." He opened the box to reveal a silver ring with a small green stone. "This was my wife's. I want Petra to have it when the time comes, but not those cursed gold things in the drawer. Those can be melted down for scrap. Owen took the box with shaking hands. I will take care of her, I swear it. I know you will. Garrett clasped his shoulder. Now get out of here before she comes back from the market and finds you looking suspicious. Owen waited until evening, until the work was done and they were walking together through the fields, checking the irrigation channels. The sunset painted everything gold and pink, and Petra was explaining her idea for expanding the vegetable garden next year, her face animated and lovely. Petra, Owen interrupted gently. She stopped mid-sentence, turning to him with a questioning look. He pulled the ring box from his pocket, opened it, and watched her eyes go wide. I know I am still technically your farmhand, Owen said, his carefully rehearsed speech evaporating. I know I do not have land or wealth or anything impressive to offer. But I have 2 hands that will work until they bleed for you. I have a heart that is entirely yours, whether you want it or not. I have a terrible sense of direction, and your father beats me at chess literally every single time, and the rooster still hates me, but he took a breath. Petra Oakes, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life helping you fix fences and plant fields and build something worth having? Petra's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was laughing. That is my mother's ring. Your father gave me permission. Said the gold ones should be melted for scrap. He would say that. She was crying harder now, happy tears that caught the sunset light. Yes, yes, of course yes. I would marry you if you had nothing but the clothes on your back and a vendetta with poultry. Owen slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like joy and spring air and coming home. They were married the following spring. Exactly 2 years from the day, Owen had knocked on the door of a failing farm and been greeted by an orc girl holding wedding rings and barely contained heartbreak. The ceremony was held in the south field, where wheat was just starting to push through the dark earth. Neighbors came from the surrounding farms, many of them surprised but pleased. Some whispered about the human man and orc woman, but their whispers were drowned out by the louder voices celebrating love and good fortune. Garrett wheeled himself down the makeshift aisle, Petra's hand resting on his shoulder. She wore a new dress, simple but beautiful, with wildflowers woven into her dark hair. Owen stood waiting in his best clothes, still just a farmer's outfit, but clean and carefully mended, and felt his throat tighten as she approached. She was radiant, absolutely radiant. The village elder, a kind woman who had known Petra since childhood, performed the ceremony. The vows were traditional, but when Owen promised to stay in times of plenty and in times of hardship, in joy and in sorrow, through every season until my last breath, everyone present knew he meant it. When Petra promised the same, her voice steady and sure, Owen saw the ghost of the heartbroken girl he had met 2 years ago finally laid to rest. In her place stood a woman who had rebuilt her life from ruins and found something stronger than what she had lost. They exchanged rings, not the gold ones Marcus had left, which had indeed been melted and sold, but new silver bands Owen had commissioned from the town smith. Simple, sturdy, meant to last. You may kiss, the elder said, smiling, and Owen did not need to be told twice. The celebration lasted into the evening. Tables had been set up in the yard, groaning with food the neighbors had brought. Someone produced a fiddle, and dancing began as the sun set. Owen danced with his new wife under the emerging stars, both of them laughing as he tripped over his own feet. You are terrible at this, Petra said affectionately. I am a farmer, not a dancer. You are my husband. She said it like she was testing the word, savoring it. My husband who cannot dance. I have other skills, such as fencing, plowing, losing at chess. Truly, I am blessed." He spun her, managed not to drop her, and counted it as a victory. "You are stuck with me now." "Good," Petra said, and kissed him in front of everyone, shameless and happy. Garrett watched from his chair at the head table, wiping his eyes and pretending it was just the smoke from the cooking fires. Neighbors clapped and cheered. The vindictive rooster, locked in his coop for the evening, crowed indignantly at being excluded. Later, when the guests had departed and the stars were bright overhead, Owen and Petra walked together through their fields, truly their fields now, worked and won together. The wheat rustled in the night breeze, and somewhere an owl called. "You remember the first day we met?" Petra asked, leaning into his side. "You answered the door holding wedding rings and looking like you wanted to fight the world. I was so angry, so hurt. I thought that was it, that was my one chance at happiness, and it was gone." She looked up at the stars. "I never imagined this. Someone who would stay, someone who would love all the broken parts." "You were never broken," Owen said firmly. "You were healing. There is a difference." She smiled and turned to face him, taking both his hands. "Thank you for knocking on my door that day. Thank you for seeing past the mess and the pain and the disaster." "Thank you for opening it," Owen replied. "Thank you for letting me stay." They stood together in the field they had planted, under stars that had witnessed 1,000 love stories and would witness 1,000 more. Behind them, the farmhouse glowed with warm light. Ahead, the future stretched out like the furrows in the earth, straight and true and ready to be filled with good things. "Come on," Petra said finally, tugging his hand. "We have an early morning tomorrow. The north pasture still needs attention, and your terrible bread will not make itself. I am improving. You burned the last 3 loaves. Practice makes perfect," she laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet fields, and pulled him toward home. Their home. Built from heartbreak and hope, and the simple act of staying when it would have been easier to run. As they reached the door, Owen glanced back one last time at the fields stretching into darkness. 2 years ago, he had been down to his last coin with nowhere to go. Now he had land and love, and a future he had never dared imagine. And somewhere in a drawer, forgotten and powerless, sat a pair of gold wedding rings that had once represented a broken promise. They would stay there, gathering dust, while Owen and Petra built something better from scratch. The door closed behind them, shutting out the night. Inside, warmth waited, fire and family and all the ordinary magic of a life chosen deliberately, with open eyes and faithful hearts. The farm would prosper. The seasons would turn. There would be hard days and easy ones, lean harvests and abundant ones, arguments and reconciliations, and all the beautiful mundane chaos of 2 people building a life together. But they would face it together, and that made all the difference. Morning came early, as it always did on a farm. Owen woke to find Petra already moving, pulling on her work dress in the gray pre-dawn light. He watched her for a moment, this fierce woman who had taken a chance on a drifter with empty pockets and a good heart. "I can feel you staring," she said without turning around. "Just appreciating the view." She threw a pillow at him, grinning. "The chickens will not feed themselves, charming one. The rooster definitely will not. He is probably planning my demise right now. You have been married to a farmer for exactly 1 day, and you are already making excuses." Owen launched out of bed, catching her around the waist and pulling her back down. She shrieked with laughter, and from downstairs, they heard Garrett yell something about young people and letting an old man sleep. "Fine, fine." Owen released her, pulling on his own clothes. "But I expect compensation for this early rising. You get breakfast." "I was thinking more along the lines of another kiss." Petra rolled her eyes but obliged, and the kiss turned into 2, then 3. Then Garrett yelling again about the chickens staging a revolution if they were not fed soon. They tumbled downstairs, still laughing, and found the old orc already at the table with tea and a knowing expression. "Good morning, husband and wife," Garrett said dryly. "Now that you have finished making enough noise to wake the dead, perhaps we could discuss the day's work." The morning unfolded like any other chores and meals and small crises that needed solving. But there was joy in it now, a bone-deep satisfaction that came from working land they loved with people they cherished. Owen fed the animals, made peace offerings to the still hostile rooster, and worked alongside his wife in the fields. Petra sang her plant songs and he listened, and when she caught him watching, he did not look away. This was his life now. This was his happiness. Built from nothing, lasting forever,